how do you two wind up together?
So that is kind of funny.
What was your experience with Life Action? Do you remember what you thought?
Whoa, what is this? God had got a hold of my life.
We had to give them an answer. We told them no.
You did.
Do you think we did the right thing? He was like, oh, don't say that. The situation with Bryce, his lungs were filling with blood. We were told to tell him goodbye, but God.
And he said, you're healthy, except for this cancer.
We need prayer.
Welcome to Changed Lives, a special limited series in which I explore the incredible stories of the people behind the scenes at Life Action, a ministry with a mission of reviving relationships through transformative events. Each of these individuals, my coworkers, have experienced God move in big and unexpected ways. The more I heard their stories, the more I thought, people need to hear this. In this series, you'll get a first-hand look at how God is working in and through the people of Life Action, the challenges they face, the faith that sustains them, and the lives being transformed along the way. Their stories are powerful. Today, I'm joined by Tim and Tammy Rensberger, a couple whose quiet, faithful service to Life Action has spanned over 4 decades. From traveling in ministry as newlyweds to Tim's behind-the-scenes work in facilities, they've witnessed firsthand the powerful ways God uses this ministry to touch lives in churches across the country. In this conversation, they open up about a deeply personal season in their family, one marked by prayer, community, and healing, and how that same faith is carrying them through Tim's current health journey. As you listen, consider how you might join in what God is doing through faithful servants like Tim and Tammy. Life Action runs on the prayers and generosity of people like you. Maybe you'll feel called to partner with them, supporting the lasting impact they're making. Enjoy this conversation. Today, I'm joined by Tim and Tammy Rensberger, and I'm just excited that you're here, sitting down, willing to share your story, and I'm really looking forward to hear it. So before we learn more about your story, though, can you tell me a little bit about what you do today for Life Action?
I work facilities department, as well as kind of a hybrid with Brandon working some emergency management roles too. Main focus is facilities, which sometimes can cross over a lot of things. But
And there's quite a few facilities to maintain.
yes, we do.
Yeah, a large camp property, and then here, right? So it's a pretty big job.
It is,
What you do.
but I love it.
Good. Well, I would love to learn a little bit more about what brought you all here. Let's take a look back. And can you just tell me, Tammy, I'll start with you. Where are you from and where'd you grow up?
I grew up on a small farm in western Kansas, southwest of Goodland. That's where my roots are,
Yeah.
is western Kansas. So I'm a farm girl.
Farm girl. What did your family farm?
Wheat, corn. They had some cattle, and Dad even did some sunflowers for a while.
Yeah. What was life like growing up as a farm girl?
Oh, I loved life on the farm. Animals, of course. Always had a dog and kitties around, and even had a cow that ended up being more like a pet. And I loved being able to walk out to the field where my dad was working, and I would climb up on the tractor and ride along with him in the tractor and just spend hours with him out there. And
Sounds like a pretty
very much
idyllic childhood.
enjoyed. Yes,
Yeah.
very much enjoyed.
Yeah. And was faith a central part of your family? Did you all go to church?
Yes.
Okay.
My parents, my mom had actually just become a believer just before meeting my dad. When they moved to the farm, he had actually been on the railroad for a while, and they had moved from place to place for about a year during their first year of marriage. And so when they moved back to the farm, one of the first things that they did was they got connected with a small country church that was actually probably 30, maybe even 35 miles from the farm. But the pastor there just was very nurturing, and their faith just grew. And so, yes, we were at the church pretty much every time the church doors were open. As I grew up, they started another church there in Goodland, so it was only like 18 miles away. And but yeah, every opportunity that we had, we were always in church. And they started a small Christian school when I got into the upper grades, and so I went to the Christian school through my high school years.
Okay. Well, great. How about you, Tim? Where did you grow up?
I grew up, most of my childhood was in a little town out in the middle of Kansas, Gypsum, Kansas.
Okay.
Um, Probably in my kindergarten, first grade years on through there, through high school. Parents knew the Lord.
Mhm.
We were very involved in church as we grew up. That was just kind of like what Tammy had said.
Mhm.
Doors were open. We were there. We were interesting. We were the city folks, a town of about 400. Most of that community was all farmers. I think we were the only one at church that lived in town, and there were city folks, quote unquote,
Yeah.
just because we lived in town.
Sure. Yeah.
But my dad did a variety of things. He had taught school for a number of years, and then moved on to working for the state of Kansas for a while, and then started an air conditioning business, kind of where I got some of my background, learned some of that. We were many nights late coming home, working on a tractor or a combine, and those were good times.
Yeah.
And recently my dad was just talking about some of that, and I just kind of forgot about how close we were, and just the times that we shared. Just, I remember falling asleep in the truck coming home, just exhausted, but just loved the time with my dad.
Yeah, doing stuff together. Seems like you both shared that relationship with your dads, just being together and just in the little things. You don't realize that adds up to be the big things often, right? So what happens after kind of high school age?
For me, God used closing a door to, I wanted to go to the area of tech school and do cosmetology. But because the Christian school had only been in existence for 5 years, and I was in the second graduating class, the technical school did not feel that the school had the proper accreditation. And so they told me that, well, you can get your GED and jump through this hoop and that. And I was like, I do not want to do that. So I ended up going to Calvary Bible College in Kansas City, where my older sister had gone the year before. And that was where we met. I'd actually met Tim the year before. He was friends with my sister and some of her friends.
Okay.
And so I had met him the year before. So God kind of rerouted my plans, and I landed there.
And were your plans, did you still want to go into cosmetology, or what were you thinking when you went to Bible college?
I wasn't necessarily just set on cosmetology. I had cut hair, just cut my own hair, cut other people's hair, probably from the time I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. And so that had piqued my interest in doing it as a career. I had grown up, every time missionaries would come, we would often have them staying in our home. And so I had always had kind of a heart's desire to be in some sort of ministry. And when I went to college, I decided I would do secondary education with a focus on business classes. I liked secretarial type things. And I decided if I do that, if I end up in a mission school, then I have something to offer. And so that's what kind of landed me there. And it was, even though it was Kansas City, it was a good 8 hours from home. So,
yeah, that's a trip. And so then, Tim, you were at that same school? Did you go to it earlier?
Okay. My parents had attended that school
Okay.
years ago. And then there was just some influence there. We had been to the campus and done some work during the summers My dad can volunteer some time, just help out some of the refrigeration, air conditioning stuff, and so I had some connections there, something that kind of resonated there. I had previously, maybe even taken a step back when I was around 10, 11, somewhere in there, that God had got a hold of my life and had felt called to give my life to Christ and to possibly full-time service. And I didn't know what that meant.
Sure.
I had kind of had a path in high school thinking I would go into electronic engineering. And that even that summer, just kind of, I just didn't feel that's where I should be. But kind of encouraged to consider Bible college, and it took a year to go there. And that's where I ended up at Calvary University now, it's called.
Okay. And so then you said you'd met him before because he was friends with your sister, but how do you two wind up together?
So that is kind of funny because when he was a freshman at college and I was a senior in high school, one of the guys from our church had come home and said, Tammy, I have the perfect guy for you. And I thought, you just don't like who I'm dating here, which they weren't the best of guys. He showed me his picture and I just was kind of like, whatever. So, but then when we went down to a campus visit, I met him, I thought, well, he's pretty cool, you know? And so the next year when I came as a freshman, just real spiritual of me, the church that I chose to go to, one of the only ways that I could get there was to ride with Tim. I had a pretty severe crush on him, but he dated one of my good friends for a while, and yeah, and did not show any interest in me for another couple years.
It's a long time to have a crush. Somebody that's not crushing back.
And then when he did finally ask me out, I had even been asked by one of my friends, would you date Tim? And I said, well, like there was a fall event, a fall concert that people were going to, and it's the big fall dating event, I guess. And I said, yeah, but if he asked me and then things didn't work out and have all these mutual friends, that might not. I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
So the night that he asked me out, I hesitated. I was like, what do I do here? You know, and he's like backpedaling. You can take your time. You can let me know later. And I said, no, I'd love to go. And so I quietly walked up the stairs into the dorm, and my room was right around the corner, and I went in and I closed the door and I jumped up and down. I was so excited.
That's so sweet. Now, what did that whole journey look like from your perspective?
I remember distinctly the first time we met in the hallway of the old campus, and I think I wasn't that impressed. I don't know at the time. and I say we were good friends. We did a lot of mutual things together, but wasn't really on my radar as far as dating until a couple years into it, and it's like, I should at least consider that, and good choice.
What was it about her that you thought, maybe I've been overlooking this lady?
I don't remember specifically anything that just stood out, but just her character and her heart for the Lord, and I don't know, we just had enough mutual things we enjoyed doing that I just attracted me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you start dating, then how long after that before you get married?
It was over 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And then what do you think you're going to do after you get married? Are you graduated by that time?
We did graduate before we got married, though.
Gotcha.
a month before we got married.
And then what was the plan?
Dick Angelo from Camp Four Springs. I had served as a counselor at the camp, and he was on the campus and sat down and talked to both of us. We were looking for where we might go, where we might serve. And as we were talking, he said one of the things that he would counsel engaged couples was not that it was something that was like a mandate of Scripture, but a principle that in the Old Testament it talked about the young men that got married. They had a year before they were sent out to war. And he just challenged us that when we stepped into ministry, we were going to be stepping onto a spiritual battlefield, and to give ourselves a year, if we could, before we stepped into ministry. And so we did apply to Camp Four Springs, and that was one of the ministries that we were considering going to. Life Action came through with a summit and was at one of our local churches. Some of our good friends had been on the team, and they challenged us to apply.
So they came to a church. Was it the church that you went to, or a different church?
Different church.
A different church.
But we should back up just a little bit there
Yeah.
too, because our first exposure to Life Action was actually at the school.
That's true.
Okay.
They did a Crusade Summit today during chapel every morning, and then in the evening they had one going at a church, local church. And that was our first exposure to the ministry.
Yeah.
And then we had some friends that came up here.
Yeah.
And so there was an interest because they were very good friends that highly respected.
Sure.
And then after we got married was when
When
they were
came
back in the area.
Back in the area.
Yeah. What was your experience with Life Action? And what do you remember what you thought?
Like, whoa, what is this place? Yes, but yet there was an attraction there just to see the truths taught. And I mean, as a college student, just being able to apply some of those things of clear conscience. Well, I think one of the things I look back at too was to see the life change in some other students that, I mean, we were at a Christian college, okay? They're all Christians, right? Wrong. That's not just like the church. But that was kind of the mindset. But to see a couple, I just specifically a couple of those guys that I saw a change in their life because they got saved during that time.
Yeah.
Like, wow, there is something.
Yeah. What is God doing through
Yeah,
Life Action? Yeah. Sure. So when you applied, you get accepted right away to be a part of
Well, no, we actually, it's kind of interesting backing up again. After we graduated, I had some aviation instrument rating that I was working on that I had to finish before I graduated. So that was taking longer than what I anticipated.
Flying's expensive.
Flying's expensive. It takes time, and it was dragging on and on and on. And I had committed at the job I had taken that committed for a year that I would be there. Well, that year was coming up, and right along that time was when Life Action was back in the area, and we got to talking.
They had contacted us and accepted us. They had asked Tim to come and serve on the team as a multimedia technician, as well as they wanted him to do, just be available to do mechanical work and that sort of thing. And they had accepted me as a singer, and I think I might have had to do at least another audition or something like that as well. But those were the things that we were looking at as possibilities. But when it came right down to it, we had to give them an answer by June 23rd, which was our first anniversary. And we told them no.
Yeah, you did.
Because I still had to finish that license.
Sure.
we had zero support.
Yeah.
And it was,
And they wanted us in July for new
Yeah.
new singer training.
Yeah.
we told them no.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. And so you mentioned flying.
But-
Were you becoming a pilot?
Well, that was one of the things that I had pursued.
Okay.
Thinking, well, maybe that's something God could use, missionary aviation or something.
He had his private pilot's rating, and he was working on his
his
instrument
Sure.
rating.
Okay.
It's kind of the next step, and
Yeah,
that's a
so-
major step. So I had to finish that. So that was part of what the catch was too, of being able to come. I was like, I had to finish, and we felt like it was just impossible.
Sure.
There's no way in that time period that we could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we said no.
So how do you get here then? If you said no.
We
That was on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And
Sunday.
Wednesday night, he had to work late. We'd missed church. And he came in and I said, do you think we did the right thing? Was just questioning our decision. And he was like, oh, don't say that. And so anyway, we just took time that night to just pray and just sought the Lord on what we needed to do and that sort of thing. And the next morning, Byron called and asked us to reconsider. And we just, had he called before we had that time of prayer, I don't think we would have changed our minds. But having him call when we were already just feeling like maybe we had.
Yeah.
And so we ended up coming up to see the ministry the 4th of July weekend. Dell, he was like, I believe you're supposed to be here. Don't worry about the support. It will come. And his faith was incredible. A month later, we were here. August, we were here.
What year was that?
1985.
Okay. And did the support come?
The support came, but our first support check was in the negative.
owed
By
money.
By the time they took out our insurance and taxes, we were in the negative.
But interesting, again, backing up, once I told my boss that this is what we're doing, and he said, well, you got a week's vacation. Take it and then come back and we'll finish out your time. And so that gave me a paid week of vacation to finish up my license and get all that stuff taken care of. And we raised a little support, and by faith we came.
Wow.
She had a little bit of school debt.
Yeah.
And we had saved for a car. So we took that money, paid school debt off, and came basically broke. By faith. And it's been quite the journey, but God has never let us down.
Yeah.
And we've always had what we needed. And just seen God do that over and over and over again.
That's a pretty common story of God being faithful over and over and over here at Life Action. So when you come on staff then, did you fulfill those roles that you had planned, or was it something else?
So we were supposed to be on the blue team.
Yeah.
And I had already missed the new singer training. So we already knew that I was not going to be singing. And I really wasn't here early enough to even do much for children's ministry and that sort of thing. So I had known that at least for the first year I would not be doing that. We got here and everybody on the white team, which is back then it was a one-nighter team doing America, You're Too Young to Die. And later on, and they were still developing the family Holding On for Life at that time. And everybody kept saying, oh, you're on our team. We've been praying for you. And we're like, we're on the blue team. And
no.
And the blue team was like, no, And so anyway, what had happened is the young man that was supposed to be coming for the white team, which because of the team that it was doing the projection every night, they had to have a media tech.
Yeah.
And he could not get here. And so because of that, we were on the white team. So we'd been married a little over a year, and we were living out of a suitcase and in a different place every night.
Every night, because it was one night events. Were you staying at host homes then?
We were in host homes most of the time
Yeah.
because they did not know that there were two married couples on the team. And so, yeah, we were just in a host home pretty much every night, once in
Together?
a while. Together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was
Twin
one night we
beds.
had twin beds.
That's funny.
I don't think we ever had bunk beds, though.
No.
No. Oh, that's so
Fun.
funny.
But we switched. Then they kept saying, well, just a few weeks, just 2-3 weeks. Well, that went on till
Thanksgiving.
we're going to switch you to the blue team. Well,
We
then
switched at
we switched
after
at
Christmas.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually got the best of both worlds. We
Sure.
got the experience on the one-nighter team, which was really incredible.
Yeah.
And then we got to go to the blue team with Steve Canfield and travel the West Coast at that point. So that was really cool. It's a good experience.
Was it common for a married couple to join a road team back then?
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the team members would maybe meet and end up continuing to travel after they got married, possibly. But for the most part, no. I know of one other couple that was married, and they were friends of ours from Calvary, actually, that traveled as a married couple. But yeah, for the most part, no.
Yeah. So you got to do the one night event, and then you transferred over to the blue team. And how was that, being on the road with the blue team?
It was good. There was some hurdles in that relationships were already established, and
Sure.
so then there's this new couple coming in and that sort of stuff. And so there was some adjustments, definitely some adjustments, but nothing that major. And it was nice to be more stable, to be in one place for a couple weeks rather than a different place every night.
Sure. And how long did you stay on the road?
Just the 1 year.
Just the 1 year. Okay. All right.
Yep.
But probably got to learn the heart of the ministry within that travel. Yeah. And what would you say if someone said, what is the heart of the ministry? Because you really got to experience it.
I feel like the underlying heart that is, I feel like still the heart is to impact believers' hearts in such a way that they are challenged to live out biblical truth just in everyday life, to live that authentic Christianity. And we learned a lot of that ourselves as we sat in the teaching and that sort of stuff. I ended up doing some children's work and worked as a financial secretary for the team, and then Tim was doing multimedia as well as other. He can't help but not fix stuff. But yeah, just definitely just seeing lives changed and hearts renewed, and people who, even like myself, because I didn't come to know the Lord until later, I struggled big time. I had prayed a prayer as a small child, and I knew what the truth was. But having actually made that personal, the asking the Lord to forgive me and be Lord of my life, I just had not done that. And so those truths just even continued to impact my own life and to convict me of where I was at and where I had put on a mask and was living a facade. But yeah, just being able to impact people. And
did you experience that on the road? Is that where
It was
it did come after?
actually, even years later,
Yeah.
it was not until in one of our staff training every summer in August, and 8-9 of 89 is when God used the verses in Matthew that say, if you confess me before men, I will confess you before my Father in heaven. But if you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. And I just remember that even as I prayed that prayer as a small child, the very next day when somebody had asked me about it, I just denied it.
Mm.
And I just feel like I prayed a prayer,
Mhm.
but I didn't really understand what I was doing. So those verses were ones that I know that I'd had to have read when I was in college, and but that particular night, and it wasn't the first time that I had been wrestling with issues of have I ever really truly been saved? And that night was the night that I was like, well, one way or the other, I know that I did. I know that I denied it.
Mm.
And whether it's just a matter of coming clean with that and saying, no, I am confessing him before men.
Wow. Were you surprised by that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
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 But yet I knew that we had been through some times of just struggling with her genuine salvation. But I saw after that, and one of the things I talked about that night is just, do you know that you know that you know?
Mm.
And I saw that change after that night. She
Hmm.
knows.
Yeah.
How did you recognize that change?
Just by her life,
Yeah.
just a deeper love for the Lord and a
Yeah.
deeper to get in there. Not that she didn't before, but it
Mhm.
was just a different level.
That's great. So when you're traveling on the road for a year, and do you decide to come off? Are you asked to come off? How does that happen?
We were given the option
Yeah,
Okay.
we were-
in March. They ask us to make the decision because they need to be recruiting people to replace. And I think we were kind of weary
Mhm.
in some ways. And we were talking about how would it look to start a family if we were traveling and those type of things. And we decided that we would rather come off the
Mhm.
road. And they had already told Tim that
They
they needed
Oh,
him
great.
somebody
there.
Yeah.
for facilities,
Okay.
and they needed help. So we felt like that was right.
You had a place.
We had
Yeah.
Place
had
for
a
you.
place to go.
So that probably made it a little bit of an easier decision too,
Yeah.
because you were still going to be here, just in a different
Yeah,
capacity.
exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so you come off the road, and where do you start at the camp? Do you start here? What was that role
It
like?
was at the office where we started. Even then, we still helped with some things at the camp, but my main facility was the office.
And since we didn't have children, I worked in the media department. I did some stuff on a typesetter for a
Yeah.
while, and I loved doing that sort of thing. Just there again, it went back to that clerical stuff and the computer type stuff that I had loved doing. And I wasn't using my business ed degree as a teacher. I was using a lot of the stuff that I had learned in doing different computer skills
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
so and then I worked some in the accounting department as well.
Did you know that you wanted to stay at Life Action for a while? Did you think that was going to be your path, or was this going to be a temporary spot?
We came for a year.
Right.
This is now coming up 40.
Yeah. I was going to say, how'd that year go for you? Yeah.
The other thing was just kind of started out was helping Dan Puckett
Okay.
with vehicles and equipment and stuff. And then as things transpired, I did more of that, and then more facilities, and it just has grown. But
When they built this facility, then he ended up doing tons of the in workings here, even like the in-floor radiant heat always boggled my mind. Seeing that was a huge process, and the electrical wiring and those type of things just but did a lot of the help with stuff in the construction here.
And at what point do you decide to start a family, or when does that happen?
Well, when we did come off, over a year, maybe longer, before I ended up getting pregnant finally, and Bryce was born in 88.
Okay.
All of our 4 children were born within a 8-year period of time, basically.
And what was that like, raising a family and working at Life Action?
We lived in a really tiny, small house up until Bryce was about 5. And we had just Bryce and Tiffany at that time. And a property became available to Life Action to purchase because of its location. The property line was right up next to the camp. And so they wanted to sell it to Life Action. And the house needed a lot of work to bring it up to. The upstairs had really not even been lived in. There was ice on the inside of the windows during the first couple years that we were there. Didn't have any, it was all electric baseboard heat. There was no ductwork anywhere, all of that sort of stuff. And so Life Action had said they knew that we were planning to have another child, and they said, how about if you live here and do the work to get it fixed up, and we'll keep your rent low. We rented that house until about 5 years ago when Life Action sold it to us. But that's where we lived. That's where we raised our family. The kids would go through the back trails to go over to the camp and spend time. The kids grew up being able to have rich teaching. I just feel like Life Action invested in our marriage and in our children's lives. And we have been very blessed in that way through the years.
Yeah. I think it's probably sometimes hard to describe to people. You work in a ministry. Usually when you say that, people think you're teaching or you're children's ministry. How difficult is it to explain that you're in ministry, but actually you're behind the scenes and you're making sure that the things that are used in the ministry actually work? Yeah.
It's tough sometimes because that's kind of what they think of those out front.
Yeah.
The preacher or the teaching and some of that, and that's not who I am.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yeah.
It is difficult to tell people, well, I'm back there mowing the grass and I'm fixing something. But I would rather be under something than working on something than standing up in front of people. It's not my thing.
Yes. But why is that role so important? And that might be hard for you to say why, but why is that so critical to the ministry?
For me, one of the things that I have thought of over the years is that I can't even remember exactly where, but it's in the Old Testament where there were men that didn't go into battle, but they stayed behind and took care of the stuff, and how they were given part of the plunder because they still had their role in being behind and taking care of the things there. And without that being done, the rest of it can't be done. And I feel like that's kind of what our role is. Sometimes I even almost feel like we're not only behind the scenes, but we're behind the scenes behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Each piece has its part. And even though it is behind the scenes, it's important to have it in order for the whole thing to work.
Yeah, nothing else works without it happening, right? And I like to liken it to preparing a place, right? We say often we're preparing a place for families, for wives and husbands and kids, and for ministry leaders. We're preparing a place for them to come where they can disconnect, reconnect with God and each other, and somebody has to actually prepare the place. And I think part of what you all do is that preparation that the guests might not see ahead of time, but boy would they notice if it wasn't.
And that does happen.
It does.
Yeah.
When the air conditioner goes
Yeah.
out, then, it's like you notice when things aren't working
Yeah.
the way they're supposed to.
Pretty
So-
important with how many buildings are out there? 40 some buildings out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there's actually more than that.
Yeah.
And I think we were counting up just air conditioners last year
Sure.
just for fun, and we come up with like 160
Oh, wow.
something somewhere in there.
Those things don't last forever.
They don't last forever.
No.
There's always an issue, but
Always.
it's one of those positions you're always on call.
Yeah.
But I sometimes is driven by that too.
Sure.
I love that adrenaline rush.
And just knowing how to fix things. Like there's just when there aren't a lot of people that know how to fix all the things. There just aren't. And so when you do need someone, it's like, just the trusted person that you can call to fix the things. I think is so valuable.
That's one of the things that I think too, that even way back, I look at how God has gifted Tim,
Mhm.
and it is one of those things where, like you said, not everyone can do those type of
Mhm.
things, and it's what God equipped him for.
Mhm.
It is
Mhm.
definitely how he designed him.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Can you talk a little bit about, because it's such an important part of your story? I read a post the other day that are coming up on the anniversary of a really difficult time in your family's lives. Can you talk about that and how that really helped with the formation of your faith?
well, Bryce and Mallory had been married for less than 6 months, and he was at his place of work when he had forgotten his name badge. He'd went to go get a temporary one, and on his way back, he started feeling sick, and long story short, he had a massive heart attack. His heart flatlined due to a blood clot. And we found out at that time that he had a blood clot disorder. But because of him flatlining, they had to do CPR. And in the process of that, they bruised the lining of his lungs. But because of it being a blood clot, he was also put on blood thinners. And so that was on a Monday after Thanksgiving, and by the Saturday, his lungs were filling with blood, and he was drowning in his own blood. And we were told to tell him goodbye, and things had spiraled downward Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And all I can say is there were literally thousands of people praying for him. Life Action, the staff were in various different churches were praying. The lady who had found him actually went to one of the area churches, and she was a co-worker, and so her church was also one of the ones that was majorly just praying for this kid. And we probably had at least 30 people at the hospital on that Saturday. And even the staff at the hospital, the cleaning staff, they asked me if he was famous because of how many people were there. And people were just praying for him. Our daughter Tiffany was a student at Calvary at that time. The campus had pockets of prayer all over the campus for him. One of our friend's daughter, they were a missionary in Russia, and the daughter was a teenager at the time, and she posted on her Facebook, Russia's got your nighttime covered. And I think that one was what caused me to realize that it was literally around the clock, around the world. And the story had just touched people's hearts, and they were praying for him. He was in a special rotating bed, and they could not get him stable. Every time he would go onto his back, his blood oxygen level would just plummet. And they brought in a team from Survival Flight from U of M. They wanted to get him to there in order to put him on an ECMO machine so that they could take the blood out of the body, oxygenate it, and put it back in. And even it is kind of a last-ditch effort. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll work. He's normally probably around 160-ish pounds, and his body was probably swollen to around 300. His skin split across his cheek and across his forehead where it rested on the rotating bed, and just the little slight pressure of something touching the skin because of how swollen it was. But God, when they came out and they said, we have him stable on his back, we're going to take him to the helicopter. You can send people on ahead, but family, just stay here. If he doesn't make it to the helicopter, we won't take off. And so we got out to the car and we watched the sky and we were just waiting, and the helicopter took off. And so we left for U of M. And we were about halfway there when his best friend called us to say, he's here and he's stable. He's on his back in a bed. And we said, they're not getting him on ECMO? And he said, he doesn't need it. They said he's the sickest person here, but he doesn't need ECMO. The only thing that we can explain is that when nothing else could have happened, God just said, not now. So that, and God has used that in our life as we've faced different things. And we know that certainly if God had chosen to take him, Bryce was ready to go. And God is good no matter what. But just walking through, we did see him do the impossible. The verse with God, all things are possible, took on deeper meaning. Throughout that Christmas season, Emmanuel took on deeper meaning for me, God with us, because he was just with us. That was still, he was in an induced coma, and they didn't wake him up for another week, I think. It was a road. And even after that, he was $500,000 in medical debt. That there again, God miraculously provided for that as well. And so his story is one that when things are hard, because things still get hard, there's things that we are praying about that sometimes look impossible. But we know that we serve the God of the impossibles. He can do it.
Yeah. And he's healthy today.
He is. He is. He's still on a ton of medications and that sort of stuff, but he has a beautiful wife and 3 wonderful kiddos. And
incredible. Yeah, I could see how that experience as a mom and a dad would have a huge impact in your life and in your faith. And you talk about how you've kind of reflected on that and turned to that when other things seem impossible. And yeah, I know that we're, sometimes things can seem impossible in a ministry. So when you think about Life Action as a whole, what is your hope for our ministry?
I want to see those fundamental truths of revival taught so that others can experience that. And the camp had a big impact on our kids' lives and on our lives.
When we first were exposed to the ministry and the impact that made on our lives and how we saw that made an impact on others' lives, the basic truths that we're taught. We're convicting, and just the foundational truths that we need.
And I want to see that continue, for families to just have tools that help equip them, um, for marriages to be able to be built stronger, and just to give that stability in families that, because of that, it spills out into their local churches and into their community, which would possibly just spark revival everywhere. I think probably one of my favorite quotes ever is that as long as God is on his throne, revival is as possible as the sunrise tomorrow. I have that in more than one place in our home just as a reminder. And sometimes after being here for 40 years, there's times where I have to say, Lord, I struggle to believe that sometimes, but yet I do believe that. I see what you've done. Even the situation with Bryce, he had an unknown blood clot disorder. And I feel like in many aspects, our country has been known kind of as a Christian country. I think that it's becoming less and less known that way. But I feel that many churches and many Christian homes don't realize that because of sin that's inside, that unknown disorder, that needs to be revealed in Life Action, when they come in and teach those truths that they teach, it helps reveal those places that are unknown so that life can happen.
And are you leaning on those truths right now as you're walking through other unknowns in sickness? Yeah. Talk a little bit about that.
I was diagnosed with prostate cancer about 4 years ago now. And I was 59, and they said, "You're too young. We have to do something about it." And so we did surgery, and then we did 39 treatments of radiation after that. About a year later, I guess, I got ahead of myself, because the numbers had began to creep up, and they felt like they didn't get all of it. And then a year and a half ago, approximately, my numbers were still increasing, so we did another 5 targeted radiation treatments.
To a lymph node.
To a lymph node. And then now my numbers are continuing to increase. And at this point, we're facing some decisions as far as what's next for treatment. There are 2 lymph nodes that lit up, saying there's cancer in those. And the problem is, one of them is close to the bowels, and so there's more danger of doing more damage. So we are just...
If they did radiation, there's
If
danger.
they did radiation. Some of the other treatments, other side effects. But so we're just in kind of that process of pulling in information and then trying to decipher, well, what's next. My radiation doctor, oncologist, he said, go through Christmas, go to the Philippines like you guys have planned. We'll figure it out when we get back. And there again, as we step back and say, well, we saw God do a miracle for Bryce. He can do it for me. So
yeah. And Tammy, what are you leaning on right now?
Definitely just, it's honestly a day by day. We're actually going through Heaven Rules with our Sunday school class. And just the reminder that God is sovereign, He's in control. And like I said earlier, even with the situation with Bryce, God is good all the time. We have seen God's goodness. We're very thankful. Tim doesn't feel sick.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for blood work and labs and that sort of stuff and his regular routine
Yeah.
physical, we would not even have known.
Sure.
So we're thankful
Yeah,
for that.
we are. My doctor last week at the physical, he said, I'm nitpicking here. I'm looking for something. And he said, you're healthy,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
except for this
Yeah.
You
cancer.
have cancer.
Yeah.
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 I feel like once again, we have recently just updated people who pray for us on a regular basis and just let them know where things are at. And in this last week, just have gotten one person after another, after another, after another. Once again, just saying, we're praying for you. And it's caused me to realize the importance of holding one another up in prayer. I was even just thinking of how the men got alongside of Moses and held up his arms during that battle. And as long as his arms were up and his staff was held up, then they were winning. And we need people to hold us up in prayer. And I feel like that is probably what gets me through day by day, even more than I know. You know, certainly there's times, there's days when emotions can
Sure.
overwhelm, but for the most part, there's peace, and we know that God is in control and He's walking with us. He's our Emmanuel. He is right there, walking it through it with us.
This is part of your story, right? And just in what you say there, like you're glorifying God even in the midst of such a difficult season. And I think that's really a testament to like the time that you've spent here and what you've poured in to each other and your ministry. You really are like lives in action, right? From behind the scenes, but lives in action, because when people see how you're living and how you talk about this, you can't help but think, man, I want what they have, right? So when years and years and years from now, when you look back at your time here and your ministry here, what do you hope your legacy is?
Just that God be glorified, and that I guess others would see that God's real, and He's never let us down, and He's faithful, and no matter what, He's still faithful, and He's good today. He's going to be good tomorrow, and one of the things I'm praying for myself is just that I will learn and be a different man because of this cancer. So I'm looking forward to what God just continues to teach me.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm still got a lot of questions, you know, as we all do.
Yeah.
But God's good.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Tammy, what about you?
I would hope that people would see that no matter who you are, God can use you where you are, what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're in ministry, if you're not, that as you give your life to Christ and just are open to what He has for you day by day, He's going to put people in your path. He's going to put opportunities for you, and that He will always be with you and help enable you to do what He's called you to do. And He's prepared every single believer for a special purpose. And so I hope that by seeing us, we're just simple, ordinary Kansas kids that grew up
Mhm.
that God has allowed to be able to serve, and He can use anybody.
Mhm.
Well, I love your story. Thank you so much for sharing it with me and for sharing it with others. And I'm just very appreciative, both of you, for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Changed Lives. If you were encouraged or inspired by what you heard, I want to invite you to take the next step. You can support the people whose story you just heard and others like them by visiting lifeaction.org/changedlives. Whether through prayer, giving, or sharing these stories, you can be part of what God is doing to revive relationships and transform lives.